Yo, what's up, friends and family in the room? Good to see you this morning. My name's Nathan. If I haven't had the chance to meet you yet, I get to serve as one of the pastors here at Revo. And for everybody watching online, whether you're at the beach or on the road or vacation somewhere, thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate you, part of the family here. We are in the middle of a series in the summer called Fruits of the Spirit, and it's all based on one verse that Paul shares out of Galatians 5. Every week we've been going over this list, and fruits are essentially results that are going to be produced in your life if you're a follower of Jesus. And so Galatians 5 reads like this, but the Spirit produces love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, and self-control. And I like this. Like, that's the list of the fruits of the Spirit, but look at the verse that Paul leaves on the end of this. He says, there is no law against such things as these. There's no law against such things as these. So we have laws that prevent people from abusing others. We have laws that are designed to not take advantage of people so that you can't hurt people, or even laws that prevent people from hurting themselves. But we don't have to make laws about good things. Right? There is no law, like the police are never going to be called because you are being too humble in public, okay? It's just not going to happen. It's like this guy's humility is out of control. Someone needs to call the police. It's never going to happen. If you got a next door neighbor and they go out of town and their kids throw a house party, the cops aren't going to get called in the middle of the night because there's open bottles of kindness all over the front yard. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get stopped at a checkpoint and an officer lean into your car and say, hey, I smell a little love and joy in here. I'm going to need to ask you to get out, and we're going to do a sobriety check. No, that's not going to happen. That scenario is never going to happen. There's not going to be a domestic disturbance call where the police get notified and somebody's on the phone and says, hey, I really hate to be nosy, but we got really thin walls in my apartment, and I can hear my neighbor and his girlfriend next door, and it sounds like he's being really patient with her. And that might not seem like a big deal to you, but you know where patience leads. Patience leads to respect. And that's the last thing we need, is for men to be respecting women. And respect then leads to self-control. What would we do if everybody in the world was so self-controlled? You don't want to go there, do you? And the joy, and we don't have to have rules against that. And Paul says there's a lot of things that we have to have laws against, but these things in your life that the Holy Spirit produces are not things that we have to set parameters around. Kindness is one of those. That's the word we're going to talk about this week. We've done love, joy, peace, patience, and number 5, kindness. Kindness is going to be a fruit in your life if you're a follower of Jesus. Here's how I like to define kindness. Kindness is love in action. If you want to know what kindness is, if you have love for God and love for others, then that love is going to be put into action in your life by being kind. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines it like this: friendly, generous, and considerate. That's what your life is going to look like once Jesus changes it, once the fruits of the Spirit are evident. Now, you've probably heard this saying growing up. My mom used to tell me this. When somebody would say something to you that hurt your feelings or offended you, or if they were bullying you or said something that was unkind, my mom would just say, Nathan, kill them with kindness, okay? Just like that was her way of saying, like, if you will just respond in a kind way and you'll be kind and compassionate towards them, they won't know what to do. It'll send them for a loop, and just be kind to them. And that's one of the ways that I learned resilience, how to bounce back when difficult things happen in my life. I learned about kindness. And so if that's one of the fruits of the Spirit, then, and that saying is kill them with kindness, I actually want to flip it, because in the story we're going to look at today, instead of killing them with kindness, I see 3 kindness killers in this story. And it's from one of the most popular stories that Jesus ever told. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, I picked this story, I picked it out of a book that we haven't done a lot of in a long time. We should do a whole sermon series out of this book sooner or later. But this story is actually in Luke chapter 10. I know we spent 25 weeks in the book of Luke earlier this year, but this is one of the stories that we actually skipped. And so I'm excited about coming back to the story of the Good Samaritan. And so in Luke chapter 10, Jesus is speaking with a religious man, and he begins to tell this story. In verse 30, he says, there once was a man who was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when robbers attacked him, stripped him, and beat him up, leaving him half dead. It so happened, circle that, underline it, highlight it, put a smiley face by it. It so happened that a priest was going down that road. But when he saw the man, he walked on by on the other side. It just so happened. It so happened. Now see, I don't believe that anything just so happens. I believe everything happens for a reason. God is in total control. God has a purpose for your life and for mine, and everything that happens in and through and to us, God can use for his glory and his purpose. And so I like to think that Jesus, like, there's a little bit of a smile on his face when he just said, and it just so happened that there was a priest that was walking down the road. It just so happened that God gave this man an opportunity to show the fruits of the Spirit to a need around him. It just so happened that this man was walking down this road at just the right time. If you're a follower of Jesus, you need to understand that it just so happens that every day God is going to give you opportunities to live your life of boldness and as a Christian in front of other people. It just so happened that you are going to meet people. You are going to have opportunities. People are going to cross your path. And some of you will say, oh, it's a random coincidence. It just so happened that I saw this person, or they reached out to me, or we rekindled this conversation. And I want you to know, I believe every one of those things is a test. It's an opportunity for us to do what God has called us to do, to see one of these fruits happen in our life. It just so happened. Don't fail the test like this man did, because it just so happened that this priest was walking down the road, and the first kindness killer is what we see, and it's how this person responded. If you're taking notes, jot this down. This right here will kill kindness in your life, and it's what he did, avoidance. Here's what the priest did. Out of sight, out of mind. There's a problem over there, but as long as I don't look at it, then I can just walk right by. As long as I don't pay attention to what's going on, as long as I just kind of keep my blinders on and I just do me and focus on me and do what I want to do and what's convenient for me, then I can completely miss all of the needs that are around it. It just so happens that you can walk down the road and see, and God will place a need in front of you. But if you're not careful, you can totally avoid it and come up with this mentality of like, well, if I don't see it or I don't dwell on it, then it'll be okay. I can walk right by it. Out of sight, out of your mind, keep your distance from it. That's what the priest did, and killed that opportunity for him to be kind. Verse 32, in the same way, a Levite also came there, went over and looked at the man, and then walked on by on the other side. The first man, the priest, avoided it. The second kindness killer that we see in this text is apathy. The second Levite, he saw it, but he ignored it. This is crazy because the first man, he just walked on there. So like he pretended like it didn't happen and it was over there. Like, I'm just going to totally avoid it. The Bible says the Levite actually walked up to the man and stood there and looked at him right here. Maybe even pulled a stick out and poked him. Is he still alive? Does he move? Hey man, are you okay? And then once he looked at him and acknowledged him, then he stepped across the road to go to the other side. There are people that see the problem, but don't want to do anything about it. How many times have we walked by and acknowledged, saw a problem that was in front of us, and simply said, hey, somebody else will get that. That's not my problem. Somebody else will do that. Somebody else will address that. Somebody else will fix that. Like, how many times do we see a problem, and then as Christians, it just so happened that God allowed us to see the problem, and this is what we'll do. God, send somebody. Send them, Lord. Send somebody to help those people. I feel so bad for them. And we'll walk around on the other side of the road. That's what the Levite did. He ignored it. He saw the problem and acknowledged it, saw the need, but he was too self-centered to help. See, curiosity stares and kindness cares. Curiosity will cause you to acknowledge your problem, but kindness makes you step in and actually want to do something about it. Think about the last time there was an accident on the road. Like, there's a traffic jam on both sides of the road. Why? Because everybody's driving down the road, and when they get to the accident, everybody wants to stare, but nobody wants to stop. Like, everybody's like, whoo, bad wreck, bye, and keep going. It's one of the reasons why gossip magazines are so popular. I know not with y'all. I'm talking about the 9:30 service. They love the gossip magazines. Y'all probably don't even know what gossip magazines are. So let me just tell you, those are the magazines that you see at the checkout with the grocery store, right? And so celebrities got a divorce, and so-and-so's family is splitting up, and this person is a drug addict. And you know why people love those? Because we can look at the problem and then close the book and don't have to do anything about it. Not my problem. We can look at them and be like, whoo, world is crazy right now. Not my problem. God bless them. Hope they figure it out. But I don't have to do anything about it. It's one of the reasons why we watch the news at night. We can find every problem all the way around the world. And at the end of 30 minutes, we can turn it off and put our heads on the pillow and say, not my problem. Hope somebody figures it out. I hope somebody else fixes it. That's what the Levite did here. Saw the problem, walked up to it, acknowledged it, didn't even avoid it. He's like, this is a problem, and then walked away and did nothing. A lot of people can see a need. Everybody's quick to complain about the but not too many people want to actually do something about it. Not too many people want to be a part of the solution. The last kindness killer is kind of tucked away in these verses that if you don't, like if you just read the Bible, you won't get it. So you got to like read the Bible. Because this verse tells us that the road that this man got beat up on is the road between Jericho and Jerusalem. Now, what's in Jerusalem? The temple is in Jerusalem. Who works at the temple? Priests and Levites. The priest is the pastor, and the Levites are essentially the staff. They run the facilities in the organization. And so Jesus said, it just so happened that on the road from Jericho to Jerusalem, it just so happened that two men that worked for the church saw a need. And guess what happened? Number three, the third kindness killer is they were too busy. They were too busy. Where were they? They were on their way to work. Hey, listen, I would love to help you, but I got an appointment. I got to be at the office. I got some errands to run. Man, my heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry that that's happened to you. And if I had more time, I would do it. If I had more time, I would help you. I really would. I really do mean that. Problem is, we're busy. We're so busy. And busyness is a kindness killer. When we get too busy, it'll just so happen that God places something in your life, on your path. Even on your busiest days, God will give you an opportunity and give you a test. He's like, let's see what happens. Let's see if they'd be willing to be kind. And if you're anything like me, we're so busy with our lives that oftentimes we can look right past it. He's in a hurry. He's on his way to work. I got meetings. I got appointments. I got to get to the office. I got to get the kids to school. I got to run these errands. I got to get the groceries. I got to take the car to the car wash. I got some golf I want to play. Let's golf. I'm just too busy. Just too busy. I'm amazed how unkind I can be when I'm busy. I have the opportunity to travel and speak a lot. And so when I get on a plane, I'm one of those guys. You might think I'm crazy, but I'm one of those guys that likes to get to the airport like 2 hours early. I don't want to be rushed at all. Like I'm that guy. And I've noticed something. When I'm early and I've got plenty of time, my kindness goes way up. When I'm walking through security and there's the single mom with the little stroller that you got to have an engineering degree to figure out how to fold it up. And she's got her 3 kids, and 2 of them are crying, and one of them can't tie his shoes back, and she can't figure out how to close the little stroller. When I'm kind, I'll stop. And I'll fold it up, and I'll put it on the conveyor belt, and I'll help her kid walk through the thing. And I'll be like, hey, ma'am, you left a shoe. Like, you're going to want this later. And when she gets to the other side, I'll unfold it for her. It's amazing, if I'm not busy, how kind I can be. And then when I get through security, I'm going to stop at Starbucks, okay? And the guy that's working Starbucks is never in a hurry. Never. And so I'm there, and I give him my order, and And he's taking a long time, and he's like, do you want cream in that coffee? And I'm like, yep, cream. And I've already told you that. This is the second time, but it's cream. Yeah, I'll take cream. I'm not a psychopath. I can't drink it black. Like, who are you? I got to have cream and sugar in it and flavoring in it. And yeah, but I'm cool. I'm kind with it. But listen, if you catch me on a day where I'm rushed and I didn't get to the airport in time, I get through security, I'm pre-checked. I'm looking at that woman. I'm like, peace. Good luck. God bless you. You know, I'm going through the counter, and he's like, coffee. I'm like, yes, coffee. Small, tall, but big. I don't care. Whatever size. What do you got right there? What are you holding in your hand? Just give me that. I got to go, man. I got to catch this flight. Busyness is a kindness killer. Sometimes, if you're anything like me, you're busy. And I like it that way. I love to have a schedule that's got a lot going on. I don't like downtime. I just feel like I'm wasting time, but sometimes you get too busy, and it just so happens that God placed someone in your path. Just so happens that a single lady that needs help at the airport with 3 kids that doesn't know how to put the stroller down is right there. It just so happens that a gentleman at Starbucks that's having the worst day of his life is standing right in front of you. It just so happened that God puts those people in your life. And I hope that you won't be like the priest, and you won't be like the Levite and have kindness killers in your life. Now, in typical Jesus fashion, Jesus, anytime he's telling a story, a lot of times he'll tell you a few negative examples first. He'll say, don't be like these guys. Don't do this. You've heard it said, not forget that. And then he drives the story home by telling us what the real answer is. And this is what Jesus says. He says, let me introduce you to the third person in the story. Verse 33, but a Samaritan who was traveling that way came upon the man. And when he saw him, his heart was filled with pity. Now, it's hard for us to understand what would have happened to the original audience when Jesus was telling this story. But the moment that Jesus said the word Samaritan, there would have been a gasp in the crowd. Because everyone hated Samaritans. I mean, the Jews and the Greeks, the Gentiles, they didn't like each other, but they had one thing in common. They both hated the Samaritans. They hated that racial and ethnic area, like with a passion. And so for Jesus to tell a story in which the most hated person actually became the hero and did the right thing and the kind thing in the story, when he said the Samaritan stopped and had pity, people would have said, oh, no. What? No. Samaritan? Can't stand those people. To put it into perspective, it's hard for us, but to put it in perspective, let me try to give you some examples of how perplexing that would be if we told that story today. A Jewish Holocaust survivor was walking down the road and saw an injured man on the side of the road that was a German Nazi soldier. What did he do? A Black Lives Matter protester is walking down the road and sees a KKK white supremacist injured on the side of the road. What does he do? A progressive liberal Democrat is walking down the road and sees a conservative MAGA Republican that's injured and needs help on the side of the road. What does he do? And people are in the stores like, oh, I know what that Samaritan did. The Samaritan probably walked up to him and kicked him. That's how mean Samaritans are. Samaritans probably checked his pockets to see if he had any money in them. That's what they would have done. I'm surprised the Samaritan just kill him right there on the side of the road. That's what the Samaritans would do. But Jesus said it was the Samaritan that had pity. His heart was filled with compassion. And so as the antithesis to these kindness killer, Jesus says, let me tell you what real kindness is. Let me show you how it manifests in our lives. The first thing is this, jot it down. If you're going to be kind, then you got to look for needs around you. You got to look for needs around you. Before you can care, you have to be aware. I mean, if I asked everybody, do you care about the needs in this city? Do you care about the injustices in various areas? Do you care about those things? Probably everybody would be like, yeah, I want to solve problems. I want to do the good thing, do the right thing. But a lot of people aren't even aware of what's going on, not aware of the needs, not aware of the ministry opportunities that we have with people like the Salem Pregnancy Care Network and with the elementary schools in the area that are underserved and the teachers that are serving there. You just don't even know. Don't even know about the people that go to bed every night hungry and things that the rescue mission is doing downtown to help people get off of the streets and to beat alcohol addictions and get people on the right track. And we don't even know. We care, but we don't even know. And Jesus says this, man, there's got to be a point in your life, if you're going to be kind, that you actually have to see the need. You have to look for the need, to be aware. Now, there's a difference in just seeing it and looking for it, right? I mean, my kids are like this. Like, I'll tell them, hey, go upstairs to your room and look for something. And they say, Mom, I can't find it. Dad, I don't know where it is. I say, did you look for it? And they say, yes. They didn't look for it because I walked right up there and it's right there in the middle of the floor. Like, if you'd have walked into your room, you'd have tripped over it and fell. You didn't look for it. You just didn't see it. Are we looking for the needs that are around us? Because they're all around us. And Jesus says we got to be willing to look for those needs. Verse 34 says, he went over to him, poured oil and wine on his wounds, and bandaged them. Jesus says not only did this man look for the needs, but he met the need. See a need, meet a need. And I so appreciate this. The Good Samaritan did not wait until someone asked him. You know, there's a lot of people that will just say, hey, if you'll ask me, I'll do it. But if you're not going to ask me, like, don't be surprised if I don't do it. Man, I'm so grateful the Samaritan didn't come up to the guy and be like, all right, ask me. Ask me. What's that? Well, you must not want anything. Yeah, there's a need over there. I see it. That's a problem. But until somebody asks me, I'm not going to do anything about it. That's not what the Samaritan did. Samaritan, see a need, meet a need. Anybody and everybody loves to point out problems, but very few people are willing to point out a problem and then come and be a part of the solution. And that's what Jesus says we got to do with our kindness. Speak kindness into those things. You got to be willing to be interrupted. You got to be willing to be inconvenienced. I mean, this man was on his way to work, no doubt. This man, it's not like he didn't have anything to do all day. He was probably on his way to a meeting, and he saw this need. It is so interesting. Like, he said he pulled out oil and wine. This guy's got like salad dressing in his bag. Like, I don't know, what are you doing with this? But it actually makes sense, right? Because the wine would have been an antiseptic that would have cleaned the wound, and then the oil would have actually been an ointment to soothe the wound and to keep it clean, and then he wrapped it up. He's like, I just used what I had. I had a bottle of salad dressing, a little vinaigrette in the bags, and just poured it on there. Bandaged it up. Let's just help this guy. Saw a need and then met a need. But it started with saying, hey, I'm not too busy. I got a lot of things going on today. I got some things I'd rather be doing. I got a guy that's waiting on me at an appointment, but I'm going to stop. Because that's what kindness does. Verse 34, he went over to him, poured oil and wine on his wound and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own animal and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. Take care of him, he told the innkeeper, and when I come back this way, I will pay whatever else you spend on him. Wow. He saw a need, he met a need, and this is the last thing you got to understand about kindness. Kindness is going to cost you. You got to be willing to sacrifice for those around you. Sacrifice for those that are around you. This Samaritan sacrificed his time. He hit the pause button on whatever he had on his schedule. He said, I'm willing to sacrifice it. I want you to notice, after the Samaritan man picked him up, who's riding on the donkey? Not the Samaritan. He put the man on his donkey. He's like, I rode up here, but I'm going to get off and walk so that you can ride. I'm going to sacrifice my own comfort. He got into the inn, gave the innkeeper $2, 2 coins. Said, look, he financially sacrificed for him. Hey, meet your needs. And then this last one, he put his reputation on the line. He said, I want you to take whatever this guy wants, you take care of him. And when I get back, I'll pay you back. Now, for all this guy would have known, like, this is the guy that could have torn up the hotel room and set the whole inn on fire and rung up a big room service charge. And now, like, this is the friend of the Samaritan. Yeah, the friend of the Samaritan is out here going wild, ordering room service. The guy was like, no, forget that. Whatever he needs. And give him whatever he wants. And when I see you again, I'm vouching for this guy. I'll pay you. I'll meet the need. I'll do it. Sacrifice. Kindness is going to cost you something. And Jesus brings it all together. And he concluded, he says, now, in your opinion, which one of these 3 acted like a neighbor towards the man attacked by the robbers? And the teacher of the law answered, the one who was kind to him. Jesus says, see, the Good Samaritan story is all about kindness. It's an illustration of that gift. And Jesus replied, you go then and you do the same. What is the word that the Bible uses to describe what the Good Samaritan did for the man? He was kind. He was kind. Now, if you're like me, anytime I read the Bible, I immediately begin to look and say, where am I in this story? And some of you might identify with the priest and the Levite. And maybe God convicted your heart and you're like, you know what? How many times have I avoided it? How many times have I ignored it? Not doing that anymore. I'm going to be the one that stops. I'm going to be the one that kills busyness and avoidance. Like I want to show kindness to people. And so God, thank you for showing me that that's who I am. Now, some of you are, man, you're tenderhearted in the most humble way. You look at this story and you're like, yeah, I'm the Samaritan. I love helping people. My heart is broken for the needs around me. I love showing compassion. Like sometimes I get in trouble for being late to work, like because I stopped to help the guy in the middle of the road. Like that's me. But for me, when I look at this story, I think Jesus is telling it for a bigger reason. I don't think Jesus is telling us to be the Good Samaritan. Because I think first, Jesus is saying, you need to understand you need a Good Samaritan. You know who we are in this story? The beat up guy on the side of the road. The one that's hopeless. The one that's helpless. The one that is dead and lost in sin. And you know who the Good Samaritan is? Jesus. Here's what the Bible says in Ephesians 2. God saved you through faith as an act of his kindness. You had nothing to do with it. Being saved is a gift from God. Here's what God did. God saw that you and I were lost to our sin, without a Savior, no hope for eternity. God saw that need, and God met the need by sending his son Jesus to the earth. He sent the Good Samaritan to us. And finally, God loved us so much that he sacrificed for us. Out of his kindness, he allowed his son to be crucified on the cross for the forgiveness of your sin. Before you can be a Good Samaritan, you need to understand, without Jesus, you need a Good Samaritan. You are completely lost, completely gone, completely helpless and hopeless, waiting on the kindness of God to be extended to you through his son, Jesus Christ. And for those of you that are followers of Jesus here today, if you have been a recipient of that kind of radical kindness, I would challenge you that that fruit needs to be evident in your life as well. That once you realize how kind God was to you in finding you in your state on the side of the road, broken and beaten and shameful in your sin, and the fact that he stopped and saw and met the need and sacrificed for you, then that ought to drive us to leave these doors and to look for the need and to meet the need and to see the need that God has placed. Because it just so happens that God will put someone in your life even today. It's a test. I hope that your life will produce the fruit that God calls us to in Galatians 5. Love, joy, peace, patience, and kindness today. Would you pray with me? God, you stopped just out of your kindness. You stopped when our lives were broken, when we were hurting, when we were like sheep without a shepherd, when we were lost. You stopped. You saw us. And not only did you see the mess that we were in, you stopped and met the need. You didn't wait for us to beg or try to figure our way out to how we're going to get to you. You sent your son Jesus down to us to stop. And God, because of his sacrifice on the cross, now we have life. Now we have hope. Now we have joy. Now we have fulfillment and satisfaction in our life. God, give us the wisdom to know what to do with the words that we have just heard today, so that the fruit of kindness can be evident in our lives. God, it just so happens that you have people placed in our lives, divine appointments every single day. God, give us the boldness to do what you've called us to do. Pray and ask those things in your son Jesus' name.